Good morning. I'm Peter Banos, member of the Standing Committee of First Church Boston. I'm here to welcome all of you. It's so great to see so many of you, and to know that there are many of you whom I can't see because you're watching remotely. You're all welcome here in person or in cyberspace. It's good to see so many of you, especially the morning after a nice potluck dinner. I told Stephanie, don't worry, turnout is always good the morning after a big event. We always come back on Sunday morning. Then it was such an exciting night that one of you even left behind a senior access reduced fare Charlie card. So if any of you is aware of missing one and is willing to admit to being a senior citizen, talk to the minister and claim it.
If 24 counts, it's mine.
Terrific. You all know my motto, a senior on paper but a sophomore at heart. Anyway, they tell me it'll be a nice bit. If you're new here and want to know more about us, you can always visit our website, firstchurchboston.org, written as one word, no punctuation. Or if you're here in person, you can stick around for coffee hour. We love talking to people about us. We like to talk. We're a nice conversational group. I'm told this will be a busy service with lots of interesting stuff going on. So I'll refer you to the order of service, what some churches call a bulletin, for announcements of coming events. I will only point out to you the social justice community meeting after service today. I think there will be an announcement about it later on, but in any case, stick around after coffee hour, or coffee half hour, take half an hour of coffee and then come to the meeting and learn about what's going on in that department, which is an important one at First Church. Am I missing anything? Then let our worship begin.
Welcome, welcome. You are welcome here. You and all of you online. I invite you to take a moment and to look around. Smile, nod, and acknowledge one another. Each of you are not here alone because you showed up for yourself and for each other. Today is the day where we kick off our annual stewardship or canvas campaign, which is always a day that reminds me that this whole enterprise in community for 400 years is because of people showing up and supporting this community. We are here because of what those before us have given, and those that come after will be able to walk into First Church Boston because of what we leave behind. So let us enter this hour with gratitude for all we have received and continue to receive by gathering together in worship and community. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit as we say together our chalice lighting printed in your order of service, and light the chalice, symbol of Unitarian Universalism. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is law. This is our great commitment, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And I know you want to greet each other, but we're going to do something different today. It's okay to do things different, so you may sit back down, and we have a great message from Mary Ellen Norman.
Good morning. I was very sad to miss the potluck last night, but I hear there has been great revelry and connection with that. And potlucks are something that I've always enjoyed here at First Church, and I think one of my first introductions to First Church was a potluck dinner, mostly because there's a wine committee here, and growing up Congregationalist, like there's no alcohol on property ever, even for weddings. So, you know, it's one of the small little benefits that First Church provides you to have revelry and community and connection in a faith community that is so vibrant. So in your pews today, you'll see our annual Canvas Connection booklet that we started last year. And it's to remind us that we have both a little bit of an obligation ahead of us. We are in year 396 of our 400-year version. So 4 years from now, this church community will be turning 400, and we are known as the mother church among the UUs in the United States. And so we have some work to do and some presence to maintain. And with that, I've been here before asking and sharing that our stretch goal for our budget has been $200,000 from our friends and members of our community. And so this year, I'm switching our pledge campaign kind of up at the last minute for everybody, is that we're going for a stretch goal this year. We're going for an estimated gift that's a little bit more than maybe you've given in the past. We have reached our sort of a financial pivot point where we have intentionally and lovingly approved deficit budgets since the pandemic. Our resources are now depleted, so we really need to rise and figure out a way in which we can reach that $200,000 goal. And so I'm asking everybody this year to think about what would be an estimated gift that's a little bit of a stretch, and maybe a lot of bit of a stretch, as you look at and reflect on First Church as your faith community. And in that, I wanted to share my own reflections about making this ask, because I'm like, here, you're the treasurer. If you ask this, you kind of have to show up and do it too. So I spent some time really thinking about my time at First Church, and when I arrived around 2016 and had the incredible benefit of a course done by a former member, Connie Hill, those of you who know her. She did a course, Awakening to Joy, when I was first here, which just was an amazing experience. And for me, what was nice is that my brother had just moved back from Colorado, and he and I got to do that together and get reacquainted, since he had been in Colorado for most of my adult life, climbing mountains and skiing, and had also found faith in his journey as well. And then I was welcomed into this fun thing I mentioned earlier, which is a wine committee, because I just thought that was like a novel thing for former Congregationalists to experience in a church, in the community that it involved, in the education that it embarked in, what happened. And then slowly I got into a worship committee, and then I was in the standing committee, and then I was on the personnel committee, and then I all of a sudden became the assistant treasurer. And so my time and talents were my increase in my pledge every year. That's sort of how I have always been raised, that you give your time and talents and financial resources as part of your commitment to your faith community. And so in this year, as treasurer, I feel very honored to be entrusted as your treasurer of this church. And so what I did is I increased, for the first time since I arrived, my financial commitment, which I need to call a financial estimate, or an estimated gift, is 25%. So my financial contribution, hopefully by the end of our next fiscal year of 26, I increased my financial contribution by 25%. Not everybody can do that, but I want to have you think about time and talent, your financial resources of both the time you give, bumping that up, volunteering for a committee, being part of the organization, being part of fundraising activities, be part of committees in activities and putting those together to create a vibrant faith community, to bring more members into our church, more friends into our church as well. So time and talents as well as financial resources, just asking you all to sort of stretch a little bit and stretch that what you give a little bit. And it's not only money, but it is also your talents. Because having a faith community has been a priority in my life. First Church has been a place that gives me what I'm seeking. First Church has given me the connections I have been seeking in my faith community. And absolutely, First Church has been giving me sources of revelry in my faith community. And this community has just a lot of fun. Honestly, a lot of fun. And the reality is that the benefit to oneself as we give our most valuable and sacred resources is to really sustain a faith community that you have and has a lot of meaning in your life. So consider this a rewarding challenge this year to give a little bit more, or if you have an unexpected windfall, stock gain goes more than you want to sell, give a little bit to First Church, or add time and think about fundraisers, thinking about how activities and faith community can be built and grown and more people can be attracted into our community. And stretch, and just think about this as a year to stretch. And so with that, your challenge begins. Well, I'm going to switch it up a little bit. Challenge begins 2 things. One is a coffee hour. Lindsay and Barbara are going to be handing out our Canvas campaign letters. So go retrieve it from them. You will get a reward, which I will hope you will enjoy while you ponder your stretch. And the second one is I would love for you, because Stephanie mentioned it, is please greet each other quickly, say hi, and welcome each other to the year of the stretch.
Please do rise and greet one another and wave to the camera, our folks online. You may remain standing as you wish to sing our opening hymn, Sing Out Praises for the Journey, number 295 in your gray hymnal.
be seated. Good morning, everyone. I'm Reverend Hank Purse. My pronouns are he, him, and his, and it is great to look out and also to hear about what a great time you all had last night. Tonight is the 97th annual Academy Awards, and I have to admit that, well, maybe the older I get, the less I get out to see the movies. But still, it's an event. It's an event at my house. We all gather. We watch the movies. We watch the show. We see who's coming in on the red carpet. We wait to see if we catch any of the self-referential jokes that are happening there. And then there are the speeches. Some of those speeches are planned out. People come with their sheets of paper, and other times they're off the cuff. But people get up there, and let me just say, and there's going to be a lot of speeches tonight. A lot of people, they'll thank their parents, they'll thank the company, and then the people are heading right for that. And I've always wondered, not that I've ever made a movie or anything like that, but I've often thought, like, what would I say? What would I say? Because it's your chance there in front of the world to talk about what's really important, right? Your values. What values do you have that you want to share with the world all of a sudden? What would you say? What would you say at that moment? For years, there's a chant that there's a punk band from San Francisco called Crucifix, and they had this chant that I thought, like, oh, that's good. From dehumanization to arms production for the benefit of the nation or its destruction, power is power if the law of the land. It goes on and on. But I thought, like, all right, that's what I would say. And then at different times in my life, I thought maybe what I would get up there and say is I would tell the people whom I love that I love them. And then I'd apologize to the people I needed to apologize to. But it's that opportunity that you would have to share your values, to tell people what your values are. We don't do that a lot. Unless you have a bumper sticker on your car, right? That is the place where really the only place where we advertise. And even then, my Canadian wife is always is not very, doesn't really like the idea of having bumper stickers on cars. So I have to say, yes, okay. Where are those places that you get to express your values? And of course, well, we're in one right now. This is the place where we get to express what it is that's important to us. Years ago, I on a Sunday just like this, talking about values and talking about that this is the place where we get to express them, where we get to tell our young people that and we want to impart to them our own religious values, that we want to be able to talk about that who gets to come and use this space and who's here and how do we celebrate our who's here and how do we celebrate what it is we believe. And on this day I talked about a wedding that was a marriage between our values and the way we often express our values in the world, and it was money, right? Because money is the way we express our values in the world. And I actually had a couple walk down the aisle. One dressed as had a big sign that said values, another one had a big money sign, and we married them, and it became very obvious. But this is the place where we get to even play with talking about that. Church is the place where we get to practice being human, practice being able to articulate what is important to us, and then going out into the world and being sure of where our values come from, and being able to have the right language to share as we head out. So in a few moments, I'm going to be heading out with a couple of our young folks, and we're actually going to be we're going to be doing a bunch of other stuff. But I brought a bunch of coins. cleaning at my parents' house, I keep finding more and more foreign coins from every trip my parents have ever taken. So I thought we'd maybe talk a little bit about coins out there. So maybe afterwards you can come and see how we've crayoned on Abe Lincoln's face and that sort of thing. But just remember that the church is an extension of what you believe the world could be and should be. And now, our choir.
Good morning. I didn't have a chance to put the words in your notes this morning, but it's as if Mary Ellen actually had known the words to this piece, because she talks about the year of stretching. And this is, measure me, sky, tell me I reach by a song. I have been little too long. Wind be my width and my height. Measure me, sky. Sky be my depth, wind be my height. And the other one that's so beautiful, world, oh world, my heart span, loveliness, wings for my flight. And so I think that about says it all. It pretty much reiterates what she just said.
Measure
I invite you into this centering moment, taking the deepest breath you've had a chance to take today. Pray with me. Spirit of life, vast universe, loving God of many names and no name. You reside in the great cycles of our world and our lives. Thank you for every opportunity, no matter how brief, to rest after labor. Thank you for every opportunity, no matter how brief, to celebrate after challenge. As the fallen leaves return nutrients to the soil through harsh winters, may we too find the place of our resilience, the place of our sustainability. Our precious resources are depleted. We yearn for them to be replenished by the time we need them next. May we be sustained by those sacred rhythms of nature, those rhythms of nurture and nutrient. And may we not be lured by the toxic cycles of exhaustion and exclusion. As we cultivate generosity, may it be a practice of love and gratitude. As we move into a time of shared stillness, followed by a musical meditation, I invite you to join your prayers to mine. Every week, we practice generosity and gratitude through the shared ritual of the morning's offering. For the care and sustenance of this congregation, donations may be made through the passed plates or online through the directions in your orders of service. As stewards of this congregation, your gifts will now be graciously given and received.
This morning's reading is a poem by Maggie Smith titled Good Bones. Life is short, though I keep this from my children. Life is short, and I've shortened mine in 1,000 delicious, ill-advised ways. 1,000 deliciously ill-advised ways I'll keep from my children. The world is at least 50% terrible, and that's a conservative estimate, though I keep this from my children. For every bird, there is a stone thrown at a bird. For every loved child, a child broken, bagged, sunk in a lake. Life is short and the world is at least half terrible, and for every kind stranger, there is one who would break you, though I keep this from my children. I am trying to sell them the world. Any decent realtor walking you through a real shithole chirps on about good bones. This place could be beautiful, right? You could make this place beautiful.
Life is short and the world is at least half terrible, writes the poet Maggie Smith. These days, it might feel harder to think of the world as only half terrible. Still, can you also feel the poet's hope? This place could be beautiful, right? What would it take to make a more beautiful world? What would that world look like? These are big questions, and they are old questions. I imagine that they were the questions the Puritans were asking in 1630 when John Winthrop challenged them to build a beautiful city on a hill. I hear this question in the section of our 1630 covenant that we turn to this month as part of our year-long reimagining of that text. This month's section reads, "We promise to walk in our way, all our ways, according to the rule of the gospel and in all sincere conformity to his holy ordinances." In other words, we intend to live rightly by putting our faith into everyday actions. We want to live in ways that makes our world better, more beautiful. In significant ways, this is the most enduring part of the covenant. On the one hand, its call to live rightly is directly related to the worst of how the Puritans are remembered, as sanctimonious do-gooders who judged and punished those who did the wrong thing, those who did not live by the right rules and conform to the proper ordinances. On the other hand, the idea of walking together or moving together remains a compelling metaphor to describe the New England way of being religious. This tradition calls people together in mutual support to figure out how to live rightly and well. In effect, the idea of walking together insists that religious community is an interactive, participatory endeavor. We're not just spectators at a performance. We're active participants and co-learners in figuring out life. Of course, there are also many differences between our Puritan founders and today. We do not share a commitment to one religious text as the rule for how to live. Rather, we live in a multi-faith context. In this room, I know we have folks who identify as Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, Christian, Jewish, and other faith commitments or backgrounds. Nor do we all share the same ethnic or cultural background. Today, we live in a society and a city in which people speak many languages, eat different foods, and celebrate a range of holidays. Today, we don't expect uniformity. We acknowledge and celebrate diversity And today we continue to wrestle together with the same question: how do we live rightly and well? There are no simple answers, of course, but one general approach, as Hank talked about, is to live by your values, which means knowing what your values are and which are most central. Last year, delegates from Unitarian Universalist congregations across the country, including 2 from here, voted to adopt 7 common values. You can see the full list on the back of your order of service or in the Canvas booklet. It actually writes out the full definitions and understandings of each. That booklet should be in your hymnal holder. One of these values is generosity. On a day like today, when our annual Canvas campaign launches, you might think of generosity primarily in terms of money. And as you heard earlier, yes, your financial gifts are a critical piece to sustain our church. Our income from endowments and rentals do not fully meet the cost of maintaining our physical campus, nor our programming and staff, including all that goes on to supporting our worship services in person and online. And generosity is so much more than financial gifts. Researchers at the Science of Generosity Initiative understand generosity as, quote, the virtue of giving good things to others freely and abundantly. They identify how you can give various things: money, possessions, time, attention, aid, encouragement, emotional availability, and more. A common attention across all of these different expressions of generosity is the desire to enhance the well-being of others. In this way, choosing generosity is an outlook and an attitude and actions that functions to reject certain vices, such as selfishness, greed, fear, or meanness. Can you think of a time someone was generous to you? I think of Deb and Bradley Hyde. In my mid-20s, I was mother to a toddler and struggling in a difficult marriage. Deb was older and a loan officer at a bank where I was a mortgage processor. You didn't know that about me, did you? When I needed to get out of the house over the weekend, she would welcome me and my son to her home, where her husband Bradley treated us to an elaborately homemade macaroni and cheese. Their generosity renewed me and kept alive my faith in a more beautiful world. Deb was one of the first to know when I decided to file for divorce. After mentioning that the court filing fee was a hurdle, she opened her purse and handed me $100. What could it mean to live generously? Would it change how you already live? In a climate of increasing fear, reminding ourselves of the virtue of generosity challenges us to resist the urges to just pull back and protect ourselves. Rather, generosity calls us to act liberally, freely, and abundantly for the good of others. Even so, I know there is fear. Fear of cuts to government programs like Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid that you or a loved one may depend upon. Fear of economic disruption and downturn. Fear of the corrosion of democratic practices and norms. Fear of being targeted for an identity you may carry as an immigrant, a person of color, a liberal. and we are liberals. For centuries, we have been part of a religious tradition that has been open to new understandings of the world and of the world that change what we believe and how we live. Even at our beginnings, the Puritans risked an ocean voyage in an unknown continent for the chance to live out their new understanding of faith. Some of their actions are definitely not ones we would endorse today, especially to the people they enslaved and to the indigenous people of the land. Still, over time, the members of this church wrestled with the changing understandings of freedom, joining the ranks of those who fought for abolition and then civil rights for African Americans, women, and LGBTQ folks. Over the centuries, the members of this church have not settled for the answers given by a previous generation, but have continued to ask the questions. What does it mean to live rightly? What does it mean to do good? What could it mean to put our faith into action? We must continue wrestling with these questions for our moment. This is the meaning of walking together that has long defined our way of being religious. In this moment of fear and disruption, the value of generosity can help guide our way. While I do hope the value of generosity helps to inspire your financial gifts to this year's Canvas campaign, my concern is about far more than the imbalanced state of our operating budget. More broadly, I am wondering how we as a congregation move from recent years of disruption onto a more vibrant, relevant, and sustainable path for the future. Put yourself back 5 years ago to March of 2020. Before the start of that month, we had news stories. There were less than 100 cases of COVID here in the US. A pandemic had not even been declared yet. By the end of the month, we would be in lockdown. Pharmaceutical companies would be racing to develop a vaccine, and church services and schools had all moved online. We really had no idea what we would come to endure in the coming months and years. I remember hearing at the time that we would not even understand the impact for years. Indeed, 5 years later, the crisis has faded, but its impacts remain. Here at First Church, membership declined during the pandemic and has not recovered. Since my arrival in 2023, I have heard many stories of difficulty during the pandemic and concurrent ministerial transition. Those years created loss, conflicts, and pain, some of which remain tender and even raw. I knew that this church was not in its strongest place when I stood here nearly 2 years ago during candidating week and accepted the call to be your minister. On that Sunday, I used the same reading as today, the poem Good Bones by Maggie Smith. Then, like today, I acknowledged both the hard time the church had been through and my belief that this place could be beautiful. You could make this place beautiful, right? I want to reaffirm that message today as you consider your contribution to supporting this church, because there are real challenges facing the congregation in this moment not only because of a budget, but because of the world we live in and the needs that people have to gather in religious community, where they are reminded of the values like generosity in a time of fear. We will need to work together to imagine and build a path towards a vibrant, sustainable future. And a place to start, I believe, is to recommit to the practice of generosity. We need generosity, not only in whatever financial capacity you have, and I acknowledge that this is a congregation with a wonderfully diverse range of financial capacity. We also need generosity and your willingness to greet and follow up with visitors seeking a place to belong in these hard times. We need your generosity in imagining and developing new revenue streams, and for those spreadsheet lovers, identifying place of savings. We need your generosity and sharing with your friends and neighbors why participating in this community makes a difference in your life and might make a difference in theirs. We need your generosity of time to show up for Sunday services so when others arrive here, they're not alone. And also to show up for social justice events and for acts of care for each other. I need your generosity to be open to ideas and ways of doing things that my new perspective might propose. And this is not to say that you are not already so generous in so many ways. Rather, it is simply to affirm just how important such generosity in actions and attitude is to sustaining a community like ours. Indeed, as a liberal religious community, practicing generosity, open, abundant, and free generosity of giving good to others, is fundamental to who we are. In this moment of so much fear and disruption, we might feel a pull to retreat into a place of self-preservation. And indeed, there may be times we need to recognize our limits and prioritize self-care and renewal so that we might be able to sustainably practice generosity. Still, my hope and my challenge is that each of us seeks to practice generosity and attitude and action, giving freely and abundantly to promote the good of others. In so doing, perhaps we can make the world a bit less terrible and a lot more beautiful. May it be so. Amen. Our closing hymn is number 346, Come Sing a Song with Me. It's a kind of jaunty song to celebrate that sense of coming together. Please rise in body or in spirit as we sing. Please join me in saying the words to extinguish the chalice in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together. In this time of fear and disruption, showing up in community is resistance to greed, selfishness, hatred. Generosity is the antidote. So thank you for being here. And I encourage you to keep reaching out in community, not only here, but in all the other communities that you may belong to. Join together. That's how we're meant to be as people. So sustained by our connections to each other and to all that is holy, let us go and be beyond these walls, engaging across difference, loving with abundance, and working together to sustain our shared world. Blessed be. Amen.